Good day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan battle video. In this video we are going to be taking a look at the performance of the AGL Super Saiyan Goku and Super Saiyan Vegeta units, or new legendary unit, in the Broly Red Zone. So basically we're going to take a look at just how well they do. We're going to see if they can handle the heat. As an AGL unit, generally speaking, they have a pretty good time in this event. Obviously the two strength phases means they help out quite a bit in terms of overall damage and performance. And then yeah, just obviously in terms of their, how can I say, just obviously in terms of their overall presence, their team, everything like that, they are really quite solid. I think as a unit they do quite well. I think they bring a lot to the table. Obviously they have a very mixed kind of kit. They're very much just kind of an upgrade on the kind of Goku Vegeta formula that we've seen over the years. So yeah, very interesting unit to kind of take a look at and see just how good they are as a unit, and obviously how well they handle this event. Now, whereas the Tech Cell Max event was not really designed well for them, the Broly event is perfect for their kind of kit and build, because Broly, for the most part, you can't evade him. All of his phases disable evasion, so immediately units that are good in the Cell Max event are not going to be as good here. Secondly, Broly is also a unit that generally just hits quite hard, so having them with their damage reduction should be obviously fairly solid, but there's no real lead up or wind up to his attack. So whereas he doesn't hit necessarily as hard raw damage wise as someone like Omega Shenron, he does hit pretty hard, overall as a rule of thumb. So it's obviously the big tech phase, I think, where we're most interested in seeing how well they do. The tech Broly can hit decently hard, and so seeing how they handle tech Broly is pretty good, especially considering generally tech Broly is not going to come early enough in the fight for them to have fully built up their passive. And that's kind of going to be a good evaluation of them as a unit. As I mentioned before, we'll kind of go over their details super quickly after we see how they tank V-Tech Broly. But yeah, this phase is generally where you want to see how well they do. Luckily, it is also early enough on that he's not necessarily super difficult. I would say they would definitely struggle a lot against Tech Bojack, for example, because single digits with only one super, which is good. That is a 69% friend though, so we will see how the 55% one does. But you look at Tech Bojack, which is quite a hard boss who can lock units in place. He can prevent them from supering. That is generally a problem for a unit like Goku and Vegeta, who rely on their super attacks to raise their defense quite substantially, so that they can obviously have that damage reduction really be effective. The damage reduction is a lot more effective after they've fired 2 super attacks and they've got their ultra super attack than it is going to be when they don't get their ultra super attack or fire off multiple supers. So it is important. Bojack would be quite a test for them. We'll see. Maybe I'll take a look at them in that fight. It is something that they would be very interesting to see how they handle it. But Broly's not like that. Broly's attack phase quite early on. Generally speaking, they do quite well, and they can sit in their favorite slot, the second slot, for pretty much the majority of the fight. So yeah, as a unit, I think they're pretty good. We'll kind of recap them quickly. They obviously join forces or movie heroes lead of 170% with an extra 30% for pure Saiyans units, which is pretty good. They raise attack and defense 1 turn on the 12 key, raise it on the 18 key as well, and greatly lower attack and defense of the enemy. That's not so important, but it is obviously still very helpful. I don't want to discount it. It's not the most helpful ability, but it does definitely help them out in terms of their performance, in things like SBR and ESBR and that, but it's not the wildest ability that they're going to have. Then in terms of their passive, their key +3 attack and defense of 150% in their base form. They reduce damage received by 20%, an additional key +1 per type key sphere obtained. For for the first 3 turns of battle, they have a high chance of launching an additional super attack with 20% additional damage reduction. And then they'll have an additional 50% attack and defense and medium chance of performing a critical hit when doing an ultra super. And they will also receive a morale boost when conditions are met. Now the morale boost conditions are probably where the unit gets a bit wonky. I think that's where everyone is kind of a little bit nervous about them. Their ability to activate their morale boost is quite sensitive because it does depend on where the attacks land. So they need to receive 7 attacks and have fired 3 super attacks to activate the effect. This can be somewhat hard depending on how quickly your team phases through an event and where the attacks land on a rotation. Because they gain all their defense after super, you don't just really want to kind of shove them in the first slot. The nice thing about the Broly event is because he's got 2 strength phases, generally their defense is high enough to handle the strength phases, and you can just kind of let them take attacks during this phase as much as possible, and that usually leaves them coming out pretty nicely on the back end, I want to say. They also allow you to get through this AoE phase quite quickly, which obviously does help. When they get their morale boost, they do get a little bit better. They have a flat 30% damage reduction with also 2 ki per type ki sphere obtained. They also obviously have that great chance of firing an additional super attack. And they also have an additional attack and defense of 50% and a guaranteed critical hit when ki is 24. So that's all very good. Obviously, that's very solid in terms of performance, and when they get to that stage they are relatively reliable. The great chance, the 70% of firing an additional super, really means that their defense sits quite nice and high after they fire off their super attacks, and with the 30% damage reduction, it's generally pretty solid. You can see right now on the surface level of things, they are doing a very good amount of damage, so it's not like they're doing poorly or anything like that. They are doing fine as a unit, they're not doing a terrible job or anything. So yeah, for the most part, they are just doing more than fine. For me, overall, I think they as a unit are relatively reliable. I think you can count on them in most situations. Yes, there will be certain events where maybe their morale boost would proc in a little bit late. That is just something that can happen. I don't really think it impacts them too much. It just makes their consistency quite erratic, I want to say. Like when I was doing the Cell Max event, there were some times where I'd get the morale boost before the tech phase. There were other times where I just would never get it. And it was just because of where attacks lay, how your team did your team crit, all sorts of things. But for the most part, they did very, very well. Like, for me, I think they did very, very well. As units, I think, the whole team did a very good job. So yeah, obviously here, we're going to see how well they do against the AGL Broly. It is obviously, as you can see, they did very well previously throughout the event, more than fine, generally speaking. We have a very solid kind of team build. They have a good leader skill for that. I think they have a very solid team. You can see they're taking a bit of damage before super. Again, just that is what happens. Like taking a little bit of damage before super. They don't have that raw defense to couple with the damage reduction, and also we're kind of not, at that fully built up kind of level. So it is a little bit concerning. Damage wise, 235k on the super though, really not a lot. We do have a Whis active, but honestly speaking, that's just not a lot. That's the nice bonus of having that additive kind of damage reduction and everything like that. So yeah, for me, for the most part, I think they do a very, very good job. I think obviously your main goal is to get that morale boost. I think when you have that, they are generally speaking a lot better. We would have taken less damage on the super. We probably wouldn't have taken any damage on the normals. We would have maybe taken 8k or something. So yeah, obviously the morale boost form would be a lot better, a lot more useful. But yeah, generally speaking, I think they did pretty well. You don't really need to see too much more, if I'm honest. you saw them tank with a Whis, the super attack. Obviously, without a Whis, they would have taken substantially more damage, but with that being said, they weren't in morale boost form, they didn't even have a second follow-up super attack. It's pretty easy to say that they would have probably taken maybe 500k, 450k if they were in morale boost form, and maybe if they got the additional super, they would have taken just around 400k, which is more than fine. Obviously, the big risk to them is getting supered before they fire off their additional attacks, but that's not the absolute end of the world. Generally speaking, it's fairly straightforward, if I'm honest. So, yeah, obviously, yeah, we just kind of letting and getting a good representation of them as a unit, and I think they do a very good job. Yeah, I think they do very well as a unit. I think, yeah, for me, they have a good kit for events like this. It's just getting the morale boost is the only finicky thing about them, and it can not make or break them as a unit, but when you get it, you do just see so much more improved a version of them than what you get without it. It's just the guaranteed crits, the pretty much semi-guaranteed second additional, all that sort of stuff matters like a lot when you factor in everything, especially the defense with their damage reduction, with all those sort of things. And yeah, just I don't know. For me, I think it is just very difficult to say. I do think, however, yeah, as a unit, I think they are good. And they do great damage. Like, we get unlucky here in the sense that Broly double supers in this turn, where we just unfortunately didn't have the transformation of Vegeta. If we had Vegeta's transformation with his 30% damage reduction, we would have had 70% damage reduction, we would have survived Broly's super attack, and we actually would have been fine. So, their team is also very good, yeah, for this event. So I think, overall, I have to honestly say, that I think they're really good for the Broly event. I think they're good for Red Zone in general. It's just not a lot slower paced, but it's just slower paced than Cell Max. I think they can thrive in that environment with a bit more control of where the attacks go. But yeah, that's it from me. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you next time. Bye.